Matthew Cassidy had been driving a taxi for 23 years, and he'd learned one rule: never stop, never get involved, never look too closely at the people who needed help. But on that rain-soaked Tuesday night on Highway 94, when he saw the pregnant woman collapsed on the shoulder, something made him pull over. He delivered her baby with trembling hands and a bottle of gin from his glove compartment. The infant survived. Barely. At the hospital, Matthew should have left, should have disappeared like he always did. But when doctors said the baby needed a bone marrow transplant and tested him as a last resort, the results came back impossible: 100% match. A match that would expose everything.
Matthew Cassidy's hands cramped around the steering wheel. 16 hours into a double shift, rain hammering like judgment itself. 23 years he'd driven this taxi. 23 years of one rule: never stop, never get involved, stay invisible. Then his headlights caught her. A woman collapsed on I-90's shoulder, visibly pregnant, reaching toward passing cars like she was drowning. Every instinct screamed, "Keep driving, not your problem." But that desperate hand reaching into the rain triggered something he'd buried for decades. He pulled over. Up close, it was worse. She couldn't be more than 22, soaked through, lips blue, and between her legs, "Oh, Jesus," Matthew breathed, "the baby was crowning." "Help! Please, nobody stops!" she screamed, a sound that cut through the rain like broken glass. Matthew's hands moved on autopilot. He called 911. "Pregnant woman in labor, I-94 westbound, mile marker 47. Sir, paramedics are 20 minutes out due to the storm." "I don't have 20 minutes!" He forced himself calm. "Talk me through this. I'm delivering this baby right now." The operator became his anchor, sterilized with gin from his glove compartment. The irony would hit later. The woman screamed again, gripping his forearms so hard he'd have bruises for weeks. "Push," he told her, his voice steadier than his hands. "I've got you." Then, impossibly, miraculously, a tiny, furious cry split the night. Matthew caught the baby in trembling hands, this slip of life no bigger than a football. He wrapped the infant in his jacket, the one that smelled like coffee and other people's destinations. The operator talked him through clamping the cord with a shoelace. "Is he okay?" the woman sobbed. "He's perfect," Matthew lied. The baby was blue-tinged and struggling, but alive. He got them into his taxi. Chicago General was 12 minutes away if he drove like the old Donald would have, fast, reckless, like consequences didn't exist. For the first time in 23 years, Matthew Cassidy drove that way again. In the rearview mirror, the woman's eyes met his. "Thank you. Nobody else stopped." Matthew's throat closed. In the reflection, he saw a ghost he thought was safely dead. I didn't know it then, he'd think later. But in those 15 minutes on that highway, Donald Almond, dead for 23 years, had just started breathing again. The ER was controlled chaos. Nurses shouting orders, monitors beeping, the smell of antiseptic and fear. Matthew carried the baby while Sarah, she'd whispered her name in the taxi, was rushed onto a gurney. A nurse intercepted him with rapid-fire questions. Relationship to patient, medical history, insurance? "I just found her on the highway. I don't know anything." "Family contact?" "Just help them!" The words came out sharp, the old Donald voice, the one that commanded boardrooms. The nurse blinked and nodded. Matthew stood in the waiting room planning his exit. He'd done the good deed. They were safe. He could disappear back into anonymity. But his feet wouldn't move. 2 hours passed. The rain kept falling. Matthew kept sitting, unable to explain why except that something felt unfinished. Sarah woke, asking for her baby with such terror, like she expected him to be gone, like everything she loved always disappeared. Matthew found himself checking with nurses, bringing back news. "He's stable. They're running tests." "You're still here," she said, crying. "Yeah."
She had nothing. No purse, no phone, no ID. Just a soaked dress they'd cut off and a lifetime of loss in her eyes. "Thank you for stopping. I was out there for an hour. Cars just kept driving." Matthew knew that move. He'd invented it 23 years ago. Dr. Patel found him at 3 a.m. "We need to discuss the infant's condition. Preliminary tests show concerning blood anomalies." "I'm not family," Matthew said automatically. "You're the only person here who seems to care if this baby lives." Dr. Patel's eyes were kind but tired. "That counts for something." Matthew should have left. Instead, he found himself back at Sarah's bedside as dawn broke. "What's your real name?" she asked. The lie tasted like rust. Matthew Cassidy." "I'm Sarah Henderson, or I was. Foster system since I was 5. Lost track of who I was supposed to be." 5 years old. Something cold slithered down Matthew's spine. "What happened to your parents?" "Car accident. Drunk driver killed them both. December 18th, 2002. Her voice was flat. "I was in the back seat, only survivor." The floor tilted. December 18th, 2002. Matthew gripped the bed rail, knuckles white. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "Yeah, just tired." Dr. Patel returned with Dr. Chen, a hematologist. Their faces were serious. "We need to talk about your son's condition," Dr. Patel said. "He's not—" "What's wrong with the baby?" Matthew interrupted. Dr. Chen pulled up a chair. "It's critical." The conference room fluorescents hummed like trapped insects. Matthew sat across from doctors whose expressions screamed bad news. "Your son has severe congenital erythropoietic porphyria," Dr. Chen said, then caught herself. "I'm sorry, the baby, Sarah's baby." "Just tell me if he'll live," Sarah said, voice hollow. "Without treatment, no." Dr. Chen didn't soften it. "He needs an immediate bone marrow transplant. We're talking days, maybe a week." The air left the room. "Best case is a family donor. Parents, siblings, close relatives. The HLA matching requirements are extremely specific." Dr. Patel looked at Sarah gently. "What about the father?" Sarah's face crumpled. "He died 3 months ago. Overdose." Matthew felt the words like a punch. 3 months ago. The timeline assembled in his head like evidence at a crime scene. "Extended family?" Dr. Chen pressed. "I don't have family." Sarah's laugh was broken glass. "Foster system, remember? 14 homes. Aged out at 18 with nobody's phone number." The doctors exchanged glances, the kind that said, "We've already written the ending." "We'll test you immediately," Dr. Patel said to Sarah, "but without a familial match, we're looking at the National Registry. The odds of finding a compatible stranger are—" "Test me," Matthew said. Everyone turned. "Mr. Cassidy, that's not how this works," Dr. Chen said carefully. "Unless you're biologically related, test me anyway. The odds of a random stranger matching are literally millions to 1. Then we'll beat the odds." Matthew leaned forward. "I'm not leaving this hospital until you test me." "Why?" Sarah stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because your eyes are the same green as the 5-year-old screaming in the back seat. Because 3 months ago puts the father's death right when I passed through Cedar Rapids. Because December 18th is tattooed on my soul." He said finally, "Because nobody else did." Dr. Chen sighed. "Fine, we'll run the test, but please understand." "I understand." They drew his blood, 24 to 48 hours for results. Matthew went home for the first time in 30 hours. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it, sparse, impersonal, nothing from before. He stood in the shower until the water ran cold. December 18th. The date glowed in his mind like a brand. He checked his phone calendar. Today was December 18th. 23 years exactly. The memory came. Holiday party. Catherine begging him not to drive, his hand waving him off. I'm fine. Keys in ignition. Yellow Volkswagen. Impact. Little girl screaming, Mommy, please. Matthew slammed his fist into the wall. Coincidence had to be. But he'd stopped believing in coincidence 23 years ago, the night he learned consequences don't disappear just because you run. They just wait. Hour 47 of waiting felt like drowning in slow motion. Matthew had been sleeping in waiting room chairs, showering in the hospital's public bathroom, eating from vending machines. The nurses knew him by name now. Sarah kept asking why he stayed. He kept not having an answer. Don't you have a job? She asked on day 2. Called in sick. Family? No. Friends who might wonder where you are? Matthew smiled without humor. No. So you're just alone? Yeah. Me too, Sarah said quietly. I mean, I was, before Michael. The name kept gutting him. Every time she said it, my Michael, little Michael, Michael's father. Matthew felt the ghost of his son, the boy he'd abandoned at 8 months old, the man who died at 22, thinking his father was dead. Dr. Patel found them in the cafeteria at 3 p.m. His face was wrong, confused, shocked, like a scientist whose experiment just violated the laws of physics. Dr. Chen was with him, equally unsettled. We need to talk, Dr. Patel said. Conference room, now. Sarah's hand found Matthew's arm. Is Michael? He's stable. This is about the test results. Dr. Chen sat forward. Mr. Cassidy, I don't know how to explain this. You're a match. Silence. I'm sorry, what? Sarah said. Not just compatible, you're 100% HLA match, 10 out of 10 antigens. Dr. Chen stopped, started again. It's impossible. The room tilted. Matthew gripped the chair arms. That's good though, right? Sarah's voice climbed. He can donate. We can save Michael. Miss Henderson, you don't understand. Dr. Patel removed his glasses. This level of matching only occurs between identical twins or immediate family, parent to child. The odds of a random stranger being a 10 out of 10 match are less than 1 in 100,000. For an unrelated person of a different race, we're talking millions to 1. So it's a miracle, Sarah said desperately. A Christmas miracle. Or it's a lab error, Dr. Chen interrupted. We're running the test again. This could be contamination, sample mix-up. Are you related to Sarah? Dr. Patel asked Matthew directly. Or to the baby's father? Any adoption, unknown parentage, anything that might explain? No, Matthew's voice came from somewhere outside his body. Sarah was staring at him now, really staring. Matthew, is there something you're not telling me? No. Because this doesn't make sense, and your face, you look like you've seen a ghost. I'm just shocked. They drew his blood again, 36 hours minimum. Matthew spent those hours in the hospital chapel alone, doing math he didn't want to do. His son would have been 22, timeline matched. Sarah was 23, maybe 24, 5 at the time of the crash. The father died 3 months ago. Matthew drove through Cedar Rapids in September, seen a kid OD'd in an alley, watched paramedics work, drove away because not my problem, stay invisible. Could that have been? The second test came back. Same result. 100% match.
Pre-op was fluorescent lights harsh enough to perform surgery by, the smell of antiseptic, machines breathing for people who couldn't. Matthew sat in a hospital gown, IV line in his arm. Sarah was beside him holding baby Michael, finally stable enough for brief contact. "His father used to do this thing," Sarah said suddenly. "Tap his fingers when he was thinking. Thumb, index, middle, back again." Matthew's hand stilled. He'd been doing exactly that. "Tell me about him." Sarah's face softened. "Michael was complicated, smart, scary smart. Said his dad had been some investment banker before he died. Math genius." She smiled sadly. "But the drugs, he was trying to outrun something, some grief he couldn't name." The room narrowed. "How did his father die?" "A house fire, when Michael was a baby." Sarah adjusted the baby. "He didn't talk about it much. I think it broke something in him, growing up without a dad. He used to say he felt like half a person, like there was this space in his chest, shaped like someone who was supposed to be there." Matthew couldn't breathe. "He died not knowing about the baby. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after his overdose." "What was his full name?" "Michael Donald Harrison. The Donald was after his dad. Why are you crying?" "Because his son had carried his name, had died from a hole shaped like abandonment." The anesthesiologist arrived. "We're ready for you, Mr. Cassidy." They wheeled him toward the OR. The sedative pulled him under, and memories came. December 18th, 2002, holiday party. Catherine, 8 months pregnant. Him laughing off her concerns. 5 glasses, 6. "I'm fine. I'm always fine." The drive home, yellow Volkswagen. Did it run the stop sign, or did he? The impact. Getting out, a young couple, woman drowning in blood. Back seat, 5-year-old, blonde hair, green eyes, screaming. He ran. Home. News by dawn. Drunk driving accident kills 2. Orphans, 5-year-old daughter. The plan. Fake his death. House fire. Let Catherine collect insurance. Let his son grow up without a killer father. 3 days later, Donald Almond died. Matthew Cassidy was born, with fake ID and a real death wish. 23 years of exile, watching his son from parking lots outside schools, outside rehab centers, never interfering, staying dead. Matthew woke in recovery. The transplant was happening. Sarah was there. "They said it went perfectly. You saved him." Matthew's throat was sandpaper. "Sarah," she said quietly. "The FBI is here," she said quietly. "Dr. Patel told me. They want to talk to you about something with your ID, something that flagged in the system." Her eyes searched his face. "Matthew, who are you really?" The truth sat on his tongue like a blade. Before he could answer, Dr. Patel appeared with 2 men in dark suits. "Mr. Cassidy, or should I say, Mr. Almond." Sarah's hand went to her mouth. "Donald Almond, you've been wanted for 23 years. Vehicular manslaughter, identity fraud, fleeing justice." He paused, looking at Sarah. "And we need to understand how you became a perfect genetic match for this baby." Sarah backed away. "What is he talking about?" "Sarah," Matthew said, "I need to tell you everything." The conference room again. FBI agents flanked the doctors. Sarah sat across from Matthew like he was a stranger. "Start talking," Agent Morrison said. "The truth." Matthew looked at Sarah. Her face was stone, hands trembling. "My real name is Donald Almond. 23 years ago, I was an investment banker in Connecticut, married to Catherine, 8 months pregnant with our son, Michael." Sarah's breath hitched. "December 18, 2002. I got drunk at a holiday party. My wife begged me not to drive. I drove anyway. Ran a stop sign, hit another car, killed 2 people instantly." "The Hendersons," Agent Morrison said quietly. "There was a little girl in the back seat screaming for her mommy. 5 years old, green eyes, blonde hair, covered in her parents' blood." Sarah made a sound like she'd been shot.
I ran from the scene. By morning, they were looking for me. Vehicular manslaughter, blood alcohol, .18. I faked my death 3 days later. House fire. Let my wife collect insurance. Became Matthew Cassidy. Drove a taxi for 23 years. You let your son think he was orphaned? Dr. Patel asked, horrified. Yes. I thought I was protecting him from having a killer for a father. It was just cowardice. You're him, Sarah whispered. You killed my parents. Matthew met her eyes. Yes. I was 5 years old. I was in that car. I remember everything. Green jacket, red car, blood and gasoline. My mom trying to say something, but she couldn't. Tears streamed. Then she stopped moving, and you ran. Yes. Foster care, 14 homes, 3 of them abusive. One of them, she stopped, couldn't continue. I aged out at 18 with nothing, nobody. Every nightmare, every moment I couldn't trust anyone. It all goes back to you. I know. You don't know. You got to just become someone else. You got to drive around Chicago living your quiet little life while she slid down the wall, sobbing. Matthew started to stand. Morrison's hand stopped him. Let me talk to her, Matthew said. Please. You've done enough. She needs to know the rest. What rest? Sarah looked up, mascara streaking. What else could there possibly be? Matthew took a breath. My son Michael grew up thinking I died. House fire, Catherine told him. She remarried, tried to give him stability, but something was broken in him, some absence he couldn't name. He got into drugs in high school, got clean, relapsed, got clean, relapsed, kept saying he felt like half a person, like there was a hole in his chest, shaped like someone who was supposed to be there. Sarah was staring now. He died 3 months ago, 22 years old, overdose in Cedar Rapids. Matthew looked at her. How old was your Michael, the baby's father? 22, she whispered. He died 3 months ago in Cedar Rapids. The silence was deafening. Oh my God, Dr. Chen breathed. Your son found my son. 2 broken kids from the same broken story. They found each other somehow. His voice broke.
Can I see the baby? Matthew asked. Before you take me in. Please. Morrison and his partner exchanged looks. Supervised. 5 minutes. They walked to the NICU. Matthew in handcuffs, agents flanking him, Sarah trailing behind like a ghost. Baby Michael was in an incubator, Matthew's bone marrow already flowing through tiny veins, fighting disease, giving life. Matthew pressed his palm against the glass. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. You deserve better than this, better than me. But you're going to live. And that's the only good thing to come from any of this. Sarah appeared beside him, staring at the baby. He has your son's eyes, she said quietly. I always wondered where they came from, Michael's eyes. Now I know. They came from you. I'm sorry for everything. For your parents, for your childhood, for my son. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know I'm not running this time. I'm done running. Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then, impossibly, her hand found his cuffed ones. I hate you, she whispered. I hate you for killing them, for abandoning your son, for all of it. I know. But you saved my baby, her voice cracked. You're the reason he's alive, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to hold both things in my head at the same time. You don't have to do anything, Matthew said. Just love him. Don't let my poison touch him. He's innocent in all this. We're both standing here looking at him because of you, for good and bad, for life and death. How is that possible? I don't know.
Morrison approached. "Time to go, Mr. Almond." Matthew nodded, started to turn. Sarah's hand tightened on his. "Wait." Everyone stopped. "I need to know where you're taking him. I need to be able to find him later, when I can think." "Ma'am, he killed your parents." "He's also my son's grandfather, the only family Michael has, the only reason he's alive. I get to decide what happens here, not you." Morrison sighed. "Cook County Jail. Arraignment within 72 hours. Sarah nodded, turned to Matthew. "I don't forgive you. I might never forgive you. But that baby in there needs his grandfather's medical history. He'll have questions someday about where he came from, and I won't lie to him. I won't give him the same hole you gave your son." Matthew's eyes filled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for him." The agents led Matthew away. At the elevator, he looked back. Sarah stood at the NICU window, hand pressed against the glass where his had been, staring at the baby who carried both their DNA, both their tragedies, both their hopes. The elevator doors closed. 23 years of running, over in 15 minutes on a rainy highway. Matthew leaned his head against the cold metal wall and wept. For the first time in 23 years, Donald Almond cried for everyone he'd destroyed, including himself.
Cook County Jail was concrete walls, fluorescent lights, and institutional hopelessness. Matthew sat in a holding cell waiting for arraignment. The other inmates kept their distance. Something about his face, the look of a man who'd already pronounced his own sentence. His court-appointed attorney was young, idealistic, overwhelmed. "Mr. Almond, we need to discuss options. Given the circumstances, the time elapsed, the fact that you saved your grandson's life, we might negotiate." "No deals," Matthew said. "Sir, you're looking at significant prison time, vehicular manslaughter, identity fraud, fleeing." "I know what I'm looking at. I've known for 23 years. Matthew met her eyes. "I'm pleading guilty to everything." "But," "No buts. I did it. All of it. I'm done hiding." The attorney closed her folder, frustrated. "At least let me present the mitigating circumstances." "That wasn't mitigation. That was just me trying to fix one small piece of what I'd destroyed." She left, shaking her head. Arraignment came 3 days later. Matthew stood before Judge Patricia Richardson, a woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen every excuse. "Mr. Almond, or should I say Mr. Cassidy, which name do you prefer?" "Donald Almond, Your Honor. That's who I am. That's who I've always been." She studied him. "I've read your case file. It's unusual, to say the least." "Yes, Your Honor." 23 years as a fugitive, identity fraud, and yet you saved your grandson's life, the child who exists because of the very accident you caused. The child who exists despite me, Your Honor. How do you plead? "Guilty to all charges." Murmurs in the courtroom. "Your attorney recommends leniency given the extraordinary circumstances." "I don't want leniency, Your Honor. I want justice for the Hendersons, for my son, for Sarah, for everyone I destroyed because I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done." She leaned forward. "Mr. Almond, are you asking me to punish you?" "I'm asking you to hold me accountable, vitally, after 23 years." She was silent for a long moment. "Sentencing is set for 6 weeks from today. You'll remain in custody. I'm also ordering a full psychiatric evaluation. If you're determined to punish yourself, Mr. Almond, I need to understand why." As they led him back to his cell, Matthew saw Sarah in the gallery. She'd been there the whole time. Their eyes met. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just nodded once. It was enough. Back in his cell that night, Matthew pulled out the one photo they'd allowed him, printed from the hospital. Baby Michael, sleeping peacefully, alive because of cursed blood and impossible grace. Matthew traced the tiny face with his finger. "I'm sorry I won't be there, but your mom, she's strong. She survived everything I put her through. She'll make sure you know love, even if you also know the truth about me." He pressed the photo to his chest and closed his eyes. For the first time in 23 years, Donald Almond slept without nightmares, without running, just sleeping, finally at peace with the man in the mirror.
6 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Sarah sat in the front row, baby Michael in her arms. Behind her, Catherine, Matthew's ex-wife, who learned her dead husband was alive only to lose him again. Judge Richardson entered. Everyone rose. "Mr. Almond, please stand." Matthew stood. He'd aged 10 years in 6 weeks, or maybe he'd finally stopped hiding the age that was always there. "I've reviewed everything, the psychiatric evaluation, the victim impact statements, letters from hospital staff, even a letter from Miss Henderson herself." Matthew's eyes found Sarah's. She held his gaze. "This court has wrestled with how to handle a case where the perpetrator's crime created the very circumstances that allowed him to save a life 2 decades later, where justice and mercy are so impossibly intertwined." She paused. "The Hendersons are dead because of your choices, Mr. Almond. Sarah Henderson spent 13 years in foster care, 3 homes abusive because of your cowardice. Your son, Michael, died at 22, broken by abandonment, because you chose exile over accountability." Matthew's jaw tightened. "Yes, Your Honor. But baby Michael breathes because you stopped, because after 23 years of running, you finally did the right thing." She looked at her notes. "For vehicular manslaughter and fleeing the scene, 12 years. For identity fraud, 5 years, concurrent. Eligible for parole in 8 years with good behavior." Matthew nodded, expected. "However," Judge Richardson's voice softened, "Miss Henderson has requested visitation rights for you with your grandson. She believes, and I quote, 'Michael deserves to know where he came from, even the ugly parts, so he learns what real accountability looks like.'" Matthew's eyes filled. "I'm granting her request. Supervised visits, quarterly, beginning after you've served 2 years. You'll also undergo continued therapy and participate in victim impact programs." She looked at Matthew directly. "You can't undo what you did. You can't bring back the Hendersons. You can't give Sarah her childhood back. You can't resurrect your son. But you can teach your grandson that when we break things, we own it. We face it. We stop running." "Yes, Your Honor." "One more thing. Miss Henderson wanted me to tell you something. She's naming the baby Michael Donald Henderson. She wants him to carry both their names, the broken and the brave." Matthew broke then, shoulders shaking, tears streaming, 23 years of grief finally surfacing. "Thank you," he whispered. They led him away in handcuffs, but as he passed Sarah, she reached out. Their hands touched for just a moment. "I'll bring him to see you," she said quietly. "I promise." "Why? After everything?" Sarah looked at baby Michael, then back at Matthew. "Because consequences and grace aren't opposites, they're partners, and Michael deserves to learn both." The doors closed behind Matthew. Sarah sat back down, holding her son, and whispered, "Your grandfather is a cautionary tale and a miracle, and somehow you're going to have to learn to hold both truths at once, just like me."
Outside, December snow began to fall. 23 years after the crash that destroyed everything. 1 year after the highway that saved one small piece. Life impossibly continuing.
Matthew Cassidy's story teaches us something uncomfortable. Our past doesn't stay buried. It waits, it breathes, and sometimes it comes back in the most impossible ways. He ran for 23 years thinking exile was justice. But true accountability isn't about hiding from what we've done. It's about facing it, owning it, and letting the consequences reshape us into something better. The most profound truth? Baby Michael exists because of the worst moment in multiple lives. His survival came from cursed blood carrying impossible grace. Sometimes our redemption doesn't erase our sins. It just teaches us that we're more than the worst thing we've ever done. We can't undo our mistakes, but we can stop running. We can show up. We can let accountability and grace coexist in the messy, complicated space where real life happens. What would you do in Matthew's position? Could you forgive someone who destroyed your family but saved your child? Let us know in the comments below. Also, let me know which country you're watching from. I love seeing how far these inspiring stories travel. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share powerful, true stories that remind us we're all broken, all capable of grace, and all still learning what it means to be human. Thanks for watching.